thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to host this panel. You're going to hear from some wonderful women. They'll share some lessons with you that they've learned across some incredible journeys. And then we'll leave you with a little bit of fun, too. So let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves? We'll just go down the line. And in addition to telling us a little bit about your story, tell us your proudest accomplishment in the past 12 months.
Sure. So my name is Katy Exline, and just to clarify, I'm a developer at Braintree, but thank you for the promotion to director. I'm a back-end developer at Braintree, but I am also the co-leader of Girl Develop It here in Chicago. My background is not in computer science. I used to be a policy researcher at a think tank that studied tech and manufacturing policy, and I had a really terrible spreadsheet that I had to work with every day, as I'm sure many of us have encountered in our life. And I thought, man, I could really use a database. I don't know how to make one, but that sounds right. So I did some furious Googling, and I came across a Girl Develop It class in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from. And so I took it on a whim, and it was Intro to HTML and CSS, which isn't databases, but close enough. It was something technical. I thought it was close enough. And I had just an amazing experience. It was a woman teacher who was also a developer, and it was an experience where I raised my hand in the class and said, can you tell me what a server is? I hear people talk about them, but I don't totally understand. And rather than snickering at me or giving me the eye, like, oh gosh, not one of these. She explained it to me with so much empathy and love, and so I kind of got into this group of women in Girl Develop It, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So I ended up attending a coding boot camp here called Dev Boot Camp in Chicago, and then I worked as another developer at a company called Fuda, and then from there I am now a back-end developer at Braintree. So just a whirlwind of snowballing one position after another, but that's my story.
Amazing. What's your proudest accomplishment in the past 12 months?
Yeah, so there's just so many amazing women here who have these really great accomplishments, and my biggest accomplishment is I racked a server. So going back kind of full circle, I did a rotation on our platform team this year, and I actually took we call them piggies, but popped some more RAM in there and then racked it and wired up all the networks, and it was just like, I can't believe 3 years later I'm doing this thing that was such a black box to me a couple years ago. That's my proudest accomplishment.
Amazing. That's still a black box for me.
Me too. Hi, I'm Brenda Wilkerson. I started out as a computer science major accidentally. I was pre-med, and at my university you had to choose some sort of major that satisfied all of that and something else. And so I chose biomedical engineering, and the lucky thing for me was that all engineers had to take a couple programming classes. So that's how I even found out about computer science, and after much racking of brain and changing of mind, I changed to computer science as a major and actually worked in software engineering for half my career. Very exciting work, working for Fortune 500 companies, doing a bunch of programming. Got into education sort of accidentally as well. I was wearing that beeper and up half the night fixing problems with whatever system that I was responsible for. And my husband and I were pregnant with our first child, and I thought, I'm gonna be up taking care of that baby. I don't wanna be up taking care of this software, so what else can I do? And luckily we met a friend who was the dean of a community college who kept asking me, what else do you wanna do? And I ended up being an adjunct professor there, teaching other people who wanted to career change and get into technology, to be sort of that conduit for people who never thought that they could, but wanted to take a shot at it. And I did that for years before. And at the same time, I was raising my kids, doing sort of software development, consulting on the side. I was sharing with a colleague here about how in the middle of the night, I'd be nursing my baby, clicking before sending off the software to my client. So yes, if you're in that space, you can do it too. And then I got into my current position a little bit later on when the opportunity presented itself to sort of shepherd Chicago Public Schools from what they were then calling IT education to real IT education. It was about Microsoft Word at the time. And really exciting to be able to be right at that point in our history where the whole awareness around computer science education has increased. Just most recently, I would say the most exciting thing I've gotten to do is to bring computer science core in Chicago Public Schools. We now have a graduation requirement. Very exciting. We have kindergartners talking about their algorithms. And then we had the White House steal our name. We now have National Computer Science for All, which is very exciting. And I get to be part of that group to sort of shepherd that conversation across the country. So it's a really great time to be a nerd, so come on, jump in.
Amazing, and we'll hear more about that from Brenda soon. You may have switched from medicine, but I guess you can't get away from being on call, huh?
No, that's right. Good one.
Hi everyone, my name is Riana Lynn. I'm the founder of FoodTrace. Also, as was mentioned earlier, I serve under Google Ventures, Google for Entrepreneurs, doing it at Google as an entrepreneur in residence. So a lot of people ask me what that is. Maybe I can get into that later, but I would have to say that my track kind of began pretty early. I was always interested in impacting our health and food systems from a very young age. I ended up going to college to study biology and chemistry and had a computer science major within my dorm room. Before I registered for any classes, my university was one of the first schools allowed to be on Facebook. And so I actually registered for Facebook before any classes when Facebook came out that year in 2004, and became very interested in building websites. All of my buddies were just young white men that were, building the sites at that point in time. I wanted to build websites for businesses and for business owners that I was, meeting, just because I've always been entrepreneurial. And so I learned how to build websites and content management systems in my dorm room. Outside of just doing track and studying biology, I thought that I was going to go into a lab and work in labs and maybe travel throughout the world finding different problems to solve. But by the time I got to graduate school, I felt very limited in that. And approached a family member and wanted to start my first venture into entrepreneurship, and ended up launching a chain of juice bars here in Chicago. And within that endeavor, I really learned how impactful e-commerce would be on our food system, and built a site that allowed us to have people purchase juice and product from all over the world. And ended up meeting business owners that were inspired by that story and asked me to help them build out their e-commerce and their supply chains for their food businesses. And soon after, I turned that into a kind of consulting house, and within a few months that was acquired, and I started working for national food companies purchased under the CNBC show called The Profit. I don't know if you guys watched that, but worked very closely with Marcus Lemonis, who is the host of that, comes on right after Shark Tank. So had a really exciting time building websites and logistics systems for shows that were going to come on in 2 weeks. So they would come to me and say, we just bought this company, like make it, launch a new website, give them all this e-commerce, and their sales are going to go up from probably $400 a day to over $20,000 in purchases per day. And so it's really exciting and being a part of that experience. But I realized that a lot of these food companies had a lot of supply chain issues. And no matter how much marketing they got, how good their product was, they were still going to have lots of operational issues, lots of loss of money within their supply chain. And that's when I decided to fully launch FoodTrace. And at that time, it really became empowering to me to know that the industries that I think are the oldest and most impactful in the world, that being agriculture and technology, I could finally use what I was originally passionate about as a young kid in technology, what I became very passionate about in college. and turn that into a software company. And so it's been very exciting over the last couple of years developing that, to also be a young minority woman working in two industries that are very heavily male-dominated. The average tech leader and the average farmer do not look much like me, and so inspiring women to go into both of those industries and be very impactful has, I would say, probably rolls into what has been, you know, especially over the past 12 months, something that has been one of my biggest accomplishments, being at, you know, the forefront of like Forbes and ag tech. But also inspiring young women in tech at the same time over the past year has been something that I really value and look to develop over the coming years as well. So happy to be here.
Amazing.
Hi, I'm Justine Rembisz, and I work at X as a mechanical engineer. I got really lucky at a young age in that I went to a magnet school for math and science in high school, and I got to take what I call all the ICs, so robotics, electronics, photonics, and I fell in love with robotics when I was there, so I knew that that is what I wanted to do. So I went to Carnegie Mellon, which had one of the best robotics programs in the country, and decided that mechanical engineering was my path there. I know nothing about software, so I think I'm one of the few people here in that realm. After graduating there, I went and worked for iRobot and did research for them. So this was soft robotics, 5 to 10 year outward-looking stuff. How do we get something to squish under a door and then keep moving? After that, I moved to a company called 4Moms, which was completely opposite end of the industry scale, where I was doing mass manufacturing for baby products. So these were like strollers that fold themselves or baby seats that use electromechanical motion to soothe the babies that are sitting in them. Again, worked there for about 3 years, and then joined a startup out in San Francisco called Redwood Robotics that were doing low-cost industrial arms. And so that, again, was kind of somewhere different in the industry, and we got bought by Google 6 months after I joined, and so that's how I came to X. I would say a theme throughout my career is that women are not very present, especially in the hardware side of industry. It was 6 years into my career before I had a meeting with another woman in it in a tech capacity, which is horrible. And so I've been doing a lot during my career to try to change that. When I was at 4Moms in Pittsburgh, I started a robotics workshop for young kids. Personally, I feel like middle school age is about the age where women start hearing, you know, no, you can't do this, don't go on to math and science, that's more of a boy thing, like it starts to get hard. So I really wanted to tackle that area. And what I'm proud about in the last 12 months is that I'm starting that program with X here, and I'm working specifically with underprivileged schools in the Mountain View area.
Amazing. Justine's other proudest accomplishment in the past 12 months after this panel might be converting some of you to roboticists.
Hello, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Google and Women Techmakers for inviting me here today. It's really a pleasure to be among so many incredible women in one room. My name is Nicole Yeary. I'm the founder of Ms. Tech. We help businesswomen with tech and tech women with business. And really what that means is that early on, I discovered some challenges around venture capital and wanting to build a healthcare website and needing a HIPAA certified developer. My journey through this was really, I started out wanting to be a nurse because I thought they just help people. And then I found out that, you know, blood and all that sort of thing. So I, pursued first being an attorney, and then eventually ended up going into architectural engineering at Purdue. But like you, in AutoCAD classes, I was the only woman. That was okay with me, though. I didn't really have a big problem with that. I eventually rolled into insurance. Don't ask me how that happened, but and literally through, I loved my job, and then in 2009, I was cut, just like a lot of other people, and found myself with a degree of various different learnings and skill sets and sales and marketing and very soft skills, but nothing that was really applicable to the world that we had kind of evolved to this Web 2.0. And yet I wanted to continue working on solving some problems around health insurance. And as I mentioned earlier, I found out I needed a HIPAA certified developer. If I had to do it over again, I would have just built it and not did that. But to raise capital, I didn't have the opportunity to really get a meeting with a VC. I didn't know how that worked. I didn't have the network. I ended up working for another startup called Sprout Social. Some of you may have heard of that. I was their first hire. And after 90 days and watching Justin build, I was like, if he can do it, I can do it, you know? So I started to go out there, and it was really, really hard. And started a Facebook group with other women that were like myself, very smart and laid off of work, and building WordPress sites, doing whatever they could to hustle to make money because there were no jobs. We eventually started to have brunch together and realized that we could be, you know, well, if you're better at design, then I'll do the SEO and you can put everything on the back end server, and you know, we'll just work together and hire each other. And this Facebook group started with 8 women, and it just blew up. We continued to only invite women that were like ourselves, who were really serious about helping one another and seeing women in tech really grow and foster a community. And I eventually ran out of money and went back to Ohio and realized that there was an opportunity for me to focus what I saw myself making the biggest impact in my life, which was, here's this group of women, and what am I doing just as a Facebook group? We could do so much more. If I was struggling with venture capital, why don't I go focus on changing that? So we created a second layer of Ms. Tech, and it's a first-class membership where we believe women invest in themselves, and $35 a month so that we could create a sustainability for this group and actually create some research that hasn't been done. We don't know how many women are going out there and pitching VCs, how many are actually getting meetings, how much money they're asking for, how much money they're getting. We know how many female founders there are, and that's great, but it doesn't really tell us what the conversion is on a lot of that. So our goal and objective is to really discover that and make some changes around that. Chicago was named the world capital of female founders because we have so many of them. So if that's the case, I really believe that we have a lot of opportunity here to not only start investing in each other, but seeing our companies grow, become the most profitable companies in the world. So I would say my most proud accomplishment, if you will, which is always hard for us, right? But was creating a partnership with 1871. So my company is a vendor company for 1871, which is a tech incubator here in the city. We provide the curriculum and programming for women focused accelerator program. And we sent the first company from 1871 to go to Y Combinator this year. So it was pretty awesome to see that. We don't provide them any capital, but we provide them the resources to connect them to community capital, just in terms of network, and technology resources like Google for Entrepreneurs has been an amazing aspect of that. So,
cool. Thanks, Nicole. I told you they were incredible. So the common thread, I think, across these 5 women is they're clearly very passionate about what they did, and I think they took initiative in driving their careers forward. In doing that, sometimes you face obstacles. So what's a challenge that you faced? What's the toughest time in your career, and how did you overcome that? Go ahead.
Yeah, so the biggest challenge for me was in that initial class that I took then. I got that little spark of, oh, this is cool. I don't know what to do now, but this class was great. So the toughest challenge that I faced, which I'm lucky that people face much worse than I did, but was just trying to navigate the industry, because there are so many buzzwords. It's like Rails, Django, Docker, like what? So it was challenging to try and figure out some sort of path. I wasn't even trying to pick what I was going to do, just a path. And so what really helped me overcome that obstacle was I just jumped into something. And so that's when I ended up jumping not just into the girl development class, but then in the group. And I met this network of awesome women, and we would just sit at a coffee shop and we would talk, and it's amazing how those little micro connections start to snowball. And that was how I learned about the coding boot camp. And I actually, within one of those coffee meetings, had some validation where somebody said, yeah, you should do it. I was like, those types of words make all the difference. So that was really the toughest challenge for me, was just figuring these things out. And I've just been so lucky to have an awesome network of people that just continues to grow and expand to help navigate that. So that's my challenge.
I would say probably until a couple, maybe even a year and a half ago, it was hard for a lot of us to, or I can't speak for you guys, but I think there might be a little bit of understanding in this, but my family and friends really don't understand or didn't understand a lot about entrepreneurship, tech, the pathway, as you said. And so I worked at the White House. I was a researcher at Duke. In this path since graduating in 2008 from undergrad, and they're like, why would you leave those opportunities? They're just, my grandmother still says, like, I would have still been over at Duke or White House, but she's so proud of me, and now kind of understands like where I can go with my passion and with everything that I'm doing. And at first it was really a challenge because mothers, grandmothers, friends don't see us in these roles. They don't see a lot of these stories. They don't understand what we would do on a day-to-day, or how the new, how entrepreneurship is changing, how new ideas are really impacting all of our industries. And so it took several years for them to see that kind of pay off and where it can go. And so I'm excited now that we have all these stories and they're talking about it more in media. But that was initially the challenge.
I would say a big challenge that I faced throughout my career and am still challenged by is something called imposter syndrome. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. I left school after getting my bachelor's degree, and robotics is a relatively new industry, and most people have gone to grad school. Most have their PhDs, not even just a master's. And so I constantly felt like, oh my gosh, I'm in a room with all these like super bright people who have done all this research, like what am I doing here? Another kind of thread throughout my career has been that I've changed jobs a couple times, and each time it hasn't been the same exact thing. I went from doing research to doing mass market to doing industrial work. And so while I have 8 years of professional experience, it feels every time like I make that switch, like I'm a total newbie at it. And so just working really, really hard to get up to speed, to be on the same level as my peers, I've worked hard to do it, and I feel like I belong, but there's definitely the nagging gremlins, I call them, in my mind that say, do you belong here? Are you as good as your peers? Things like that. So I would ask anyone up here who has advice for how to get over that to please see me after.
I would say for myself was to pull away from this. Through school, we're always given like a path and a direction, and we're told what classes we need to take to get to what school we want to go to, and then we go through all those classes, and then we graduate, and we're told we're going to get a job in this area, and then when that doesn't happen, then you have to become creative and start becoming innovative with your own, skills and figuring out how am I going to actually make things work, and not having a plan B. That was really challenging, when the market did crash and there wasn't a clear path for me to go down. And I even watched this with my mom because I organized a women's focused startup weekend, and I invited her to join. And day 2, she cried, because she's a systems engineer, so she's in technology, always grew up around servers and her changing tapes. But for the first time, she was forced to kind of think for herself, right, and not given direction. And be creative with what she does know and be confident about that. And I think that the greatest challenge for me was really to learn how to unwind what I had been taught about following a path, a direction that was the way we were supposed to go, right? And to develop a thought of my own and seeing a path that no one else had highlighted for me.
Right. Yeah, and I pick up on
Brenda?
that thread too, because I think we all have this sort of prescribed pathway that starts out when we're raised with, parents. They love us. They're trying to, help us. And we absorb some of that direction, but to really be able to break out of it, many times there's those barriers we always face where people want you to kind of stay in your place, whatever that is. And I feel like one of the things that I found, because I was always entrepreneurial growing up, And being an entrepreneur and thinking like an entrepreneur has a very important space in tech, even if you aren't, striking out and creating your own. And so the balance for me, the challenge for me was to really balance my creative side with the traditional technical side and figure out, and also the medical side, because I wanted to help people and to improve their lives. And so coming through the various tech jobs that I had, there was sort of like this struggle with, okay, I can do this and I'm good at this, but really, is this what I want to do? Is this really the investment in people that I want to make? And so really getting into education balanced all those things to really be able to figure out how to help first adults and now kids to find their place and to really find their voice and to work on that muscle of, I think I know what I can do with the knowledge that I'm being given, and to learn to find their own path to knowledge is really where I found sort of like that sweet spot for me. But even in there was a challenge, because with the work that I'm doing, it's very common now, but in the beginning it was a vision and people laughed and people thought it would never happen, and to really kind of go against the wind. And one of the ways I describe it is pushing the peanut up the hill with my nose. And really finding that inner strength to say, even though people don't agree with you or people don't understand and don't see your vision, that doesn't mean that your vision is wrong. And I think especially as women, we have to find that inner strength. And if you can find somebody that believes in you, that is great. If you can't, then if you know that that's what you're supposed to be doing, you have to put your feet down and say, I know that this is right. I believe this is what I should be doing. And when it breaks, oh, it's great. But to have the strength to just kind of persevere.
That's a nugget of wisdom. Confidence in your vision and the grit to make it a reality. In navigating these challenges, how important do you think it is to have one or many sponsors, role models, mentors? Have you gotten any amazing career advice from one?
I think it's really interesting. I have a lot of women through Girl Develop It who approach me and say, I'm looking for a mentor. And sometimes I just want to say, look around. And I think it is, traditionally speaking, and speaking along the lines again of like what should be done or what is traditionally talked about as having a formal mentor. And I think that environment has changed a lot. And I've really found a lot of value in the Miss Tech group. There's a resource of women there, and peers of mine have been, there's some in the crowd here that have been wonderful mentors to me, some that are further along in their careers. So I can't say that I've had one particular person, because it's doing a disservice to so many of the people that have really helped me. And that's worked for me. Some people may like to have maybe one person that they can kind of go to and lean on, but don't feel like you failed at finding a mentor if you're leaning on a network, because it's worked.
Yeah, and I think that it's all across the range. It's great to have that person or those people to talk to. Very rarely did I get that. It was always kind of early in tech, it was kind of isolated. There weren't a lot of women, and sometimes even the culture of being able to help each other wasn't there. But understand that there are mentoring experiences. This is a mentoring experience. For me, sitting here listening to these wonderful stories, I'm being mentored by, their pathway. And so you find just getting into conversations, we need to talk. We need to talk to each other. We'll learn from each other. But seeking out a mentor, I recently finally got a mentor. I had been seeking her for years when I thought, okay, it wasn't happening naturally. I found a woman within CPS, and I thought, I'm really proud of her. I know she's paved a lot of the way for this type of work that I'm doing. And I started knocking on her door, and it took a year before she had time to talk to me, but I didn't give up. I kept calling her. I didn't bug her, but I was persistent, and finally we got there. So it's be as persistent in seeking out your own the things that you know that you need, as well as as women, we're always helping others, and it'll be amazing how you will find help in all different types of experiences.
Yeah, I would agree that there are great communities now. I love the kind of group interaction I get from Miss Tech and other groups here in Chicago and across the country. I'd be happy to share some of these wonderful groups, especially that are highly active on Facebook. But I tell people this story a lot. Like early on, just right after undergrad, I was very passionate and very confident with seeking out my mentors, and I think that you have to just make that step and do what you can to get access to the people that you think are untouchable or unreachable. I remember learning Photoshop in the full Adobe suite, building a website, building out a media company just to get press passes to Obama's first inauguration. Like all of these events that were had people that were leaders from all over the world. And I ended up at this award ceremony with some of the top researchers and entrepreneurs in the country. And I walked up to this guy who is just featured on 60 Minutes as a top researcher at the University of Chicago and also an entrepreneur, and said, I want to intern for you this summer. Give me your card, let's make it happen. And he never knew I was there under this fake press, but I told him later on, and a great mentor to this day. But I tell people, find a way to work with the people that you want to work with, to learn from them in whatever capacity. Do not be scared to go up to them and get their card. Don't give them your card. Make sure you get their card, because they probably won't email you back, or they'll lose it in the shuffle. And sometimes LinkedIn, and stuff is not that effective. But you just have to, no matter how young you are, people appreciate someone that is passionate, that can help them even for free. I mean, luckily he got a budget for me to work for him, but I mean, you even have to have and seek the opportunity to work on a night or weekend to learn from these folks and get right there in the grit with them. And it's just been exciting to share that with other folks that are looking for mentorship, and now also be a mentor myself.
Yeah, totally agree. Advocating for yourself is really the key to gaining mentorship. I think it's great, like some of you were saying earlier, finding groups of your peers in the community that you can talk to, but then finding someone that has a bit more experience is also really, really valuable. And something that someone told me when I was younger in my career and looking for mentors is, the worst they can do is say no. And that's really it. It's not like they're gonna hate you for asking them for some of their time. It's not gonna, you're not gonna be denied a job at Google because you asked me to mentor you on how to do robotics, So I'd really encourage everyone to just put yourself out there and just ask the question. The worst that can happen is they'll say no.
That's right.
I think that using every possible tool that you have out there to engage with people, and also just with yourself to tap into what you already know. Books. You can learn so much from books, right? Just one I will share with you that I find, and with the Wisdom group, is it's called Monday Morning Leadership, and it's 8 mentoring sessions, and they're captured in very short read, But doing that together, the very first lesson it talks about is being a driver versus a passenger, and as Riana mentioned, you have to be that driver and take ownership for everything that happens in your life. So, be it good or bad, it's my fault, right? And I take ownership for that. So if I'm hungry enough, I will go after it. And I think that that's what you see with others too, is if they're hungry, you want to help them as well. Just really, really tapping into what Katy mentioned, knowledge share for me, I think that is the most powerful way of learning. There is nothing better than connecting with someone who's going through the same thing you're going through and can tell you what they know, save you some time, and or provide you just really an ear to listen, or even for you to be the listener. And that just presence makes such a huge difference in your confidence and your clarity.
Thanks. Justine, I saw some bright eyes when you mentioned that no one would get denied a job at Google if they asked you about how to get into robotics. So if they were to ask you, how would you advise them?
Sure. So I would say at the young level, the college level, the sort of 3 industries that get you into robotics are software engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering. Studying those in school is important. Beyond school, I think there's ways to get into robotics through the maker community. So Katy actually introduced me to Adafruit just a couple days ago. But get an Arduino, there's a ton of support groups online for that. In terms of mechanical and electrical engineering, a lot of sort of the barrier to entry is the design software. But for mechanical engineering, there's something called Onshape, which will let you do mechanical CAD for free. It's a cloud-based service. And then for electrical engineering, Eagle is something that will allow you to do schematics and board design. Instructables.com is great at breaking down maker projects. Go to maker fairs near you, get involved in that community, get in touch with those people. Hackaday is another great resource, and I have a few more if you want to talk to me after.
Yeah, and locally, Catalyze Chicago will soon be launching MHub, 100,000 square feet of space for makers. They're looking to diversify the space as much as possible. It will be the 1871 of manufacturing and kind of makers, and so look out for those announcements coming soon.
Cool. So in designing a career that you love, designing a life that you love around that, do you ever burn out? What do you do when you burn out? How do you balance living your life and pursuing this passion? Brenda, let's start with you. I love that.
Burnout is a real thing. It's a real thing, and it's one of those things that if you're really passionate and you really dig yourself in and you start to work really hard, it's hard to not at least taste it a little bit. I think one of the things that you do to balance, or I do to balance burnout, is to make sure I remember sort of my core belief systems. I am creative, so I find something else to create. I actually spent a portion of my background in creating knitted outerwear, believe it or not. And so I got back into knitting, and as I'm knitting, I'm able to, it's creative, I'm able to sort of take a break from the grind, but then also work through some of those things that are on the back burner that I want to work on next. We're always multitasking, right? We always have other ideas. Some take the forefront at a time, but there's all these other things that are still being processed. So I think when you approach burnout, you back off and you think about some of those things and you give them their attention. I think as women, it's very key for us to remember to take care of ourselves. I think we inherently are the caregivers, the lovers of other people and other things. But it's amazing that when you give yourself a break, my staff, I gave myself 10 days around Christmas there. I just sat around and I didn't check my email. I didn't do a thing. I was shocked that I did that. But when I came back, I was on fire because I had powered down the system for a minute. So, it's great to be successful in what you're trying to do, but give yourself a break, and it will actually be the fuel to help you be better at what it is that you do.
Yeah, I was gonna say that exact same thing. Take care of yourself. Like, I've come across it as a girl development leader. We have actually, the girl development chapter leaders across the U.S. have a shared Slack channel, and we have a channel called Just Say No. It's so hard too when you have all these great ideas. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be great to do a hackathon, or oh, I'd love to do a robotics workshop, and at some point you have to say no. Like, no, I need a Netflix day.
Yeah.
So it's very hard, and it's very hard. It's very hard because sometimes I felt the guilt of like, I should be doing this, or I could be doing this, or I should be doing this in my career. And like, you have to strip away all the shouldas, all what you could be doing, just look at where you are right now, take care of yourself mentally, physically, professionally, take care of you because you are your biggest advocate. So if you take care of yourself, you will succeed. Like things will work out for you, and just say no.
This is like my recent steer towards JOMO instead of FOMO. So FOMO is fear of missing out, but now I'm loving JOMO, which is joy of missing out. And it's really just taking that time for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rihanna?
Yeah, I love the JOMO. I would say, sometimes I try to take little chunks of my day or week to kind of work on my mental health, because I can work for like long stretches of time and even at like really crazy hours. There's been times I've like posted a Miss Tech group at like 2 a.m. Nicole is like also, she'll accept it at 3 a.m. So I don't know, her schedule's pretty crazy too, but I have a goal of like being like, I don't know how this title can, or who holds this title right now, but I really want to be like one of the world's foremost fruit experts. So like, I just try to discover as many fruits around the world as possible and just learn as much about them as possible. So like, travel is something that I try to build into my career. I've brought my MacBook to so many crazy places, and it kind of scares me sometimes. So we'll see like how we can work on some new safety innovations around that. But I definitely travel and just finding like a good hobby that can give you that mental break, maybe something on the more physical side to keep that up. And what you learn too is if you're taking care of your mental and physical health, you're that much further ahead of your competitors, just because you are able to come back with this energy and really kind of push things forward at an accelerated pace. So.
Kind of a weird response probably, but I got a dog. And just the responsibility of having to be home at a certain time to take care of my dog every day actually allows me to shut off and say, okay, like now this is the time that I need to take care of this living thing, and put some energy into it. And that gives me enough of a mental break that usually then I can, continue with my own like self-support type stuff, like working out or cooking dinner for myself or something like that. But a bit more seriously too, I'm pretty fiercely protective of my weekends as well. I try not to email anyone on my team on the weekends because then that gets them into the mode of, oh my God, like she's expecting me to respond back or anything like that. So I try to shut off. I mean, obviously I kind of check to make sure there's no emergencies, but I set it as a goal for myself to not send any emails out over the weekend.
Keep it in that draft box.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been thinking about a puppy, so for that same reason, it forced me to go home. I think that the most important thing that I've reminded myself is that you're the only one who can define what your balance is. So if I'm up at 3 in the morning and I'm okay with that, and I'm still being mindful of, my sleep, my nutrition, and making sure that I take care and balance in my own way. I do what I have to do because at the end of the day, I'm the only one who's going to do everything that I need to do by the deadlines that I need to get them done by. So be your own definition of balance. And for me, that is every day I know I need to walk home and I need to have my music in my ears and I need to be alone. I don't want anybody else walking with me. I have a 17-minute walk and I love it. I look forward to it every day. The other things I do is like, I will shut all the lights off, put candles on, aromatherapy, take a hot bubble bath, like whatever I can do to just really, I'm aware of what helps me unwind mentally. And so as long as you know what that is for yourself, I think that's the most important.
Love it. So we had some great discussions about the future of technology. So talk to us about the future. What are you most looking forward to in technology? Brenda, go ahead, share.
I'm really looking forward to the world that we're creating where little kids get to learn to think and create, and we're giving people at a very young age, it's going to be normal for them to be able to solve their own problems. They have the tools. I mean, that just really turns me on. And normally I have this great imagination. I can say, here's what that's going to look like. I have no idea what that's going to look like, right? Because that's so new for people to get that kind of power, but I'm so excited for it. People to be able to solve problems and have the confidence that it takes to do whatever they want to do in their lives because they know how to do these things. So I'm really turned on by that.
Empowering people with the skill of computer science.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just so cool. I'm so excited about where education is going, and at all levels. At what you're doing with children, and what I think Girl Develop It, Rails Bridge, Right Speak Code, Women Who Code. These groups are breaking down barriers to learning about technology, speaking about technology, and that type of thing. There's just so many pathways, and we spoke about this earlier. There was traditionally like this one path that you took computer science and you got your master's degree and whatnot, and that is still an okay path, but that's not the only path anymore, and that's particularly good for women or people of color or people who maybe don't have the resources or the privilege to be able to take that traditional path. So I'm just so excited about where education is going and how you can really make education work for you and your abilities and for the resources you have.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I always think to myself that for me, one of the most impactful things of my past has been exposure, and from that, I always said that exposure is the world's greatest professor. And so when I think of times that I've traveled to other countries, when I think about the capacity and learning that things like Facebook have brought to people, the digital exposure, it's really great to see how, there's a Women Tech Summit, the Google Summit in Lagos right now, right? And so it's so exciting to see how, 10, 20 years ago, we had this, a lot of people were talking about illiteracy and reading, but I feel like technology has accelerated that problem and brought so many kids across the world to more equality, more parity and I think technology and the future of education and technology is so promising. And also just for the future of tech, I'm really excited about virtual reality and augmented reality. I think from a summit that I went to at South by Southwest, there's so much that we can do, not just with gaming or virtual reality headsets in sports, but bringing people to places they never thought they would see in the world. And so I'm excited for the future of that.
What's the future of agri-tech look like? What's the future of agri-tech look like, food and tech?
There are many countries that 80% of their economy is based on agriculture, and a lot of small sustaining farmers that are just working to grow things just for their family. And I think we've had so much waste within food and agri-tech. We have a world full of hungry people, but we grow enough food to feed everybody in this world. And I think we will see hunger eradicated in our lifetime if we just execute some of the things in food and agri-tech right, things that we didn't really think we could solve 10, 15 years ago. But to know that the average American wastes 30 to 45% of every food item that they either touch or that is grown in their local area, and to know that we can reroute that in many ways, not from growing better things or creating new technology that can grow more sustainably, but creating tech systems that can make sure that the food gets to the right places and in the right time. It's really exciting to see that those two worlds can come together and solve those issues.
Absolutely. Big operations challenge.
From the robotics and hardware perspective, I'm really excited about ubiquitous robots in day-to-day life. I feel like we're really on the cusp of sort of mobile robotics being service to people day-to-day. We have the Roomba, we have washing machines right now, which I consider robots. But I think really within the next 5 years, we're going to be seeing self-driving cars. We're going to be seeing drones that are delivering things. We're going to be seeing robots that do agriculture. Just a lot more service from that industry. And I also think we're going to see a lot more platforms developed through these robots that'll allow the children that are learning about computer science right now to have things to develop on. And so I'm really excited about both of those things.
I would say there's a couple things that keep me up at night, and one of them is that we need to help the women here in this country first to reach gender parity before we can actually go out and make changes in other countries. We are not at gender parity now, and so now that we have platforms for funding and the ability to make investments in other women-founded companies or products, that we should be doing that more and being cognizant of where we're actually putting our dollars. I'm excited for the future and opportunities that I hope to build with other people and to create in terms of funds for women. There can't be enough right now in terms of high growth tech startups. We don't have enough women. I mean, how many unicorns are there? I think Danielle Morrill is one of my favorites, in terms of just women that are really killing it out there. But we have a great opportunity with college women. And one thing that we're doing at Ms. Tech is we're creating college collectives, and it was thanks to one of the interns that we had, the very first intern I had. Her name is Sanam Chakraborty and Aswan Shaka Khan. The two women, they became co-presidents down at Purdue, and they're bringing together the worlds of business school and technology. right? Because the two schools don't really communicate. And so how does innovation happen, and how do they actually build and create companies? And they're working on a startup right now called Scaled, which has got kale in it, because they're aquaponics and vertical farming and getting rid of the whole food desert idea. So I think that if we look at college women and being mentors to them, or at least encouraging them to not leave the Midwest, is a big thing too. To the seniors in the group right now, we have 16 women, and 2 of them, they're both going to San Francisco. So I'd really like to see that we help really seed start companies here and encourage them to find careers here in the Midwest as well.
Love it. Encouragement. Let's all encourage each other. Yes. We're right on time. We're going to wrap with one last question, rapid fire round. What is the single word that you think characterizes the attitude that you've taken towards your career? And whoever's got it first can start.
Share.
What is it?
Share.
Share.
Grow.
Grow.
Evolve.
Evolve.
Vision.
Vision.
Joy.
Joy. And with that, can we thank this fabulous panel of women?